Hey friends, welcome back to Sons Today. In this episode, Brian W. Peterson joins me and we try to break down the UCF BYU result. What happened? How did it happen? Why did it happen? And most importantly, where do we go from here? We talk long-term UCF as well, so make sure you stick around and enjoy the episode. But before we get to all that, don't forget we're brought to you by our good friends at Werner, Hoffman, Greig, and Garcia. Find them at wernerhoffman.com. Michael Hoffman, one of the partners there, is a longtime supporter of our show. He's a UCF alum. And right now, we know there's a lot going on in and around the Central Florida area. Werner Hoffman, Greig, and Garcia are here to help you out. If you're having challenges with insurance claims, so trying to figure out what to file post-storm, WHG can give you some guidance, some insight, give you some tips, some advice. So reach out to them again, wernerhoffman.com, or call them at 1-800-320-HELP. If you just want some advice on how to handle post-storm, post-hurricane insurance coverage and what to do, they are the firm you want to reach out to. wernerhoffman.com. Again, 1-800-320-HELP. Now, it's Sons Today time. Hey, welcome back in, Sons Today. My name is Adam, and this week, Brian W. Peterson with me again as we break down another, stop me if you've heard this, Brian, another UCF football loss, this time 37-24 to the hands of BYU. The Cougars remain undefeated on the season. The Knights decidedly not undefeated, 3-5 on the year. Brian, I don't know, man. How you feeling? I don't know what else to ask you. Like, how you feeling, Brian?
I'm good, but I'm burnt out at this point, right? So we have come to the part of the season where we are now on a second 5-game losing streak. We did this last year, and it was right around the same time during the season that we had this 5-game losing skid, and we weren't happy with it last year. We're really unhappy with it this year, and at this point, I don't know where the team goes from here. I don't know. The season is over. The space game is pretty much all we have left at this point. But I'm sure we'll get into the game.
Yeah, I'm not even really mad anymore. I had a buddy of mine text me this morning and was kind of like, "Hey, man, how you doing?" I'm not even really mad anymore. It's more like apathy at this point. Like you just kind of know it's going to happen week in and week out, and you have the hopium, and then obviously the game gets on, and you say to yourself after like 5 minutes, like, "Why did I think we could win this one?" Like, and this, I don't know, man. This is my take on the BYU game. Tell me if you feel differently. This may be a hot take, so everyone, settle in here. BYU was the first game this year, Brian. I actually thought that we got beat. Like from start to finish, BYU they dominated, controlled the football. They did anything they wanted on offense. They continued to run the ball in 3rd and 4th down and get first downs. I mean, what was 13-2, I think, in the time of possession in the first quarter alone. I think we ran 5 plays to their 20, 24, something like that. BYU just beat us in every aspect of the game. They were just a better football team. They dominated the line of scrimmage. They dominated the possession of the ball. They just did whatever they really wanted to do. And yeah, UCF have some sparks here and there, but it just felt like from the minute the ball went in the air, BYU was better than us and they beat us. I didn't think that about Cincinnati. I don't think Cincinnati beat us as much as we kind of beat ourselves. Colorado, if we don't give up that interception to KJ, if Antoine Jackson learns how to actually defend a pass at the goal line, that's a different game there as well, right? Florida, I don't know. That one just felt like a bit of a rock fight. I don't know who was really better there. And obviously we were beating Iowa State late in the game. So this was the first game where I was like, yeah, this team is just better than us. They just beat us. Like there's no, you can be mad about play calling and Gus and everything else, but this team was just flat out better than us. And they flat out beat us in almost every phase of the game.
No, I don't think you're wrong there. We talked about it last week briefly. And I said that there's a good chance that the BYU team that we were going to see at home yesterday was actually a better squad than the Iowa State team that we saw on the road. And I think that turned out to be true. Iowa State ranked higher in the AP poll, but I think that BYU is the more rounded, better team. And we saw that yesterday, right? To your point, in the first quarter, UCF had 2 minutes and 22 seconds of time of possession. That's it in the first quarter. And they finished the game with less than 20 minutes of possession overall. It was like 19 and change was the possession. So BYU pretty much did anything and everything they wanted to. It felt like the game was never in our control. I think BYU from the start of the game felt like they were in control of the game and they could pretty much do whatever they wanted. Case in point being the trick play that they ran on us the fake field goal.
Yeah.
UCF was just wholly unprepared for this game. Nothing they could do, either on offense or defense, seemed to give them any spark. And it was tough to watch.
Yeah, it almost feels like BYU went into this game, and I assume like every coaching staff, they scout us, they watch film, they figure out their game plan and said, hey, listen, if we just control the ball, like these guys are not going to be able to keep up with us. They're not going to be able to stay in the game. They're going to get tired. They're going to get worn down. And that's typically the advantage you would think we would have, being the home team in the state of Florida on a 3:30 Saturday kickoff, 80+ degree weather. You would think that would be our advantage. But BYU was like, nah, we're going to turn the tables on you. And it seemed like we were the team wilting versus BYU. A couple of things, though, right off the start of the game that really kind of grinded my gears, as people would say. And before we start all this, I know a lot of people want us to be positive about the game. I'm looking forward to the day to be positive. I don't know if there's much positive to take of this, but we'll try to find some later on. But from the moment the game started, Brian, and maybe again, I'm the minority here, so if there's a hot take, tell me I'm an idiot. Why would Gus defer the opening kickoff? We are a team that he has said we cannot play from behind. We have to have a lead. That's how we play. And we defer the kickoff to give it to BYU first. Okay, fine. That tells me then that Gus thought, I assume, that they had a good defensive plan, that they could slow BYU down, that he felt comfortable that the defense could go on the field first, get a stop or hold BYU to a field goal at the very least, and to be able to get the offense to football. I don't know what he saw in the film that led him to think that, but BYU certainly came out and was like, yeah, that's not the case here. And then again, we put ourselves in a whole 7-0 right off the bat. Again, a team that Gus has told us we can't play from behind. Now I know a touchdown isn't the end of the world from a game perspective, but you had to have seen something on film. And most teams, I think, Brian, and again, if I'm wrong, somebody call me an idiot. Most times the first drive a team has is their best drive because they've practiced those plays. Some teams
scripted drives.
Some teams script their first plays, right? Yeah. So if that's going to be probably their best representation of a drive, you had to be uber confident that your defense was going to come out and get a stop or slow down BYU. I don't know what Gus saw. Maybe he felt good about the Iowa State game plan, but off the bat, like to receive the ball just seemed like a tough decision from Gus.
So I wrote down my keys to victory for this game before the game started. And the first key to victory that I had was do not fall behind early, right? Because to your point, Gus has mentioned it during his pressers in the past. This team is not built to come from behind. We do not have the offense to be able to air out the ball and try and close the gap if we fall behind early. So I don't know why that you would want to not take the ball. I mean, maybe his game plan was, run the clock and do all these things that we've been talking about all season, that, the clock was, and not handing the ball off to RJ Harvey. Maybe that's what he was thinking, control the clock, get the ball at the second half, and make it a game in the second half. But if you're Gus, I'm not sure what you saw in the defense in the second half of the Iowa State game that gives you any confidence in their ability to get stops, right? The first half and the second half of the Iowa State game last year were two completely different stories. It seemed like the defense, was able to play well enough and get off the field in the first half of the game, but the second half of the game, they completely fell apart. Third down after third down, they allowed Iowa State to convert. So I'm not sure coming into this game that you had any confidence in the defense to be able to stop another team's offense, especially one like BYU, where they've got a dynamic quarterback. They're able to throw the ball. And we saw that throughout the game, right? These third downs, they were unable to stop BYU on third down. And I'll point out that BYU coming into this game was towards the bottom of the conference in third down conversions. And yet they pretty much had their way. They were able to convert almost at will. They were over 50% conversions on third down. So I'm not sure if you're Gus, why you're deferring that. Tough for me to say here what he was thinking. I mean, a lot of times we scratch our head and ask what Gus is thinking, but I'm at a loss.
Again, it's easy. I get like someone's probably screaming right now. It's easy to money Morty quarterback that, right? If we get a 3 and out, right, and we score a touchdown, Gus is a genius, right? I get it. But the odds would tell you that we haven't had a great defense performance. You've got an offense that seemed like it clicked a little bit or starting to click. You want to see what you have in Ja'Cory Brown. Why kick the kickoff to get the game started? I don't understand. But then that's the first decision. The second decision, BYU goes down, they score, right? Okay, like good first drive. All right, now our turn to respond. And we get in a little bit of a wrinkle, right? First play of the game, probably foreshadowing. Kobe Hudson goes down with a apparent lower leg injury. No updates from the medical staff. No updates from anybody on what that injury is. Kobe was seen in street clothes. Was seen on the bench after during the game. Looked like he was walking with a slight limp. According to Trace and Andrew, he was kind of walking around a little bit, but it was very clear he was not coming back in the game. You got to wonder what his injury status is. I'm sure we'll get into that later on throughout the week here at the Sons of UCF. But that's the first play. All right, that sucks, right? But hey, we get a first down. And then, Brian, it's 4th and 1 from our own 49, basically dead center of the field. Again, keep in mind, Gus has told you, we are not a team that can come from behind, right?
You're going to get me riled up early here.
We don't have an offense. Yes, drink that Celsius, friend. You're going to need it. We don't have the offense. 4th and 1. You have RJ freaking Harvey in the backfield, right? You have Jacurri Brown, who we now know is a run threat. You got to hope you trust your offensive line in there. And Gus decides to punt the ball away. Again, you can Monday morning quarterback this all you want, but that punt cost us not just points, Brian. It gave BYU the ball back, and that cost us 8 minutes of playing time and 3 points for BYU at that point by the time the field goes. So that decision by Gus essentially shot the rest of the first quarter out of the range for us. I understand, you want to be conservative. It's early in the game. You're a 3-4 football team. You're coming off of 4 straight losses. Show some onions here, man. Try to get 1 yard with RJ freaking Harvey, and let's keep these. And there's no guarantee we score that drive, right? But I think you send a message to your team around, we're going to come here to fight today. We're not coming here to hope we play. We're coming here to win this ball game. I just thought that was a really coward move. And I hate to call people that word. That's obviously a strong word, but at midfield, at a season that's already kind of on the brink, man, put the ball in number 7's belly and go down with him. If he gets it, let's go. If he misses it, hey, we gave our best player a shot. I just don't understand that decision.
The really mind-boggling thing about it, and I was watching it. I could not make it to the game yesterday. It was my son's birthday, so we were watching from TV.
Happy birthday, Max! Way to go, buddy!
Yes, he's 3 years old yesterday. So I was watching it, and as this play comes up, right, it's 4th down, 4th and 1. And I said to myself, there's no way we don't go for this here, right? We're already down. We're at home. Season is effectively on the line. Maybe it's over. It doesn't matter. Surely Gus is going to go for this. And I'll point out, we had this exact same situation the prior week at Iowa State on the road, 4th and 1, and we go for it. And we get it. We get that first down. So I don't know what the thought process of the coaching staff and the play callers is at this point. You're at home. You're down by 7. You're moving the ball well enough. You've got RJ Harvey. You've got Jacurri, who's a running threat. 4th and 1. You did it last week. Let's go for it. Show some gumption, right? Mind-boggling. I'm not sure why we don't go for that. I was yelling at my TV.
I've got to assume, again, that Gus just felt like he liked the matchup of his defense versus BYU's offense. I got to think he said to himself, okay, fine. Yeah, they scored that first drive, but no, they're not going to do it again. I got to think he saw something or felt some kind of way about his defensive game plan or this BYU offense that he said to himself, we can hang and play with these guys. And as soon as that first quarter ended, Brian, and again, it wasn't, it was essentially 10-0 at that point, right? I looked at my kid who was watching the game, and I'm like, this thing's over. If BYU can take the ball and control it like this and push us around and continually get yards and convert 3rd, 4th downs, this ball game is over. And I did not feel any better, Brian, as the game went on, and I saw the play of Jacurri Brown, who last week played pretty good. He was a clear run threat last week. Iowa State, I don't think, was ready for that, but it's that age-old thing of you put yourself on tape, now teams can prepare for it. Gus even said in the post-game presser, they took away Jacurri's ability to run the football, which was, again, I think a huge weapon, something we had not seen in this offense earlier in the year with KJ, took away Jacurri's ability to run the football and become a running threat. And that meant he had to become a passing threat. And he had a couple of good balls, man. He had a couple of nice throws here and there, but 2 just back-breaking interceptions. The last one produces a meme of Kobe Hudson that's going to stay around at UCF for a long time, where his mouth is wide open saying, how the hell did that just happen? What'd you make of Jacurri's performance, Brian?
So another one of my keys to the game was I wanted to see us establish the pass with.
Did you tell Gus these keys? Passes. Maybe Gus didn't know. Maybe you should tell him next time, right?
I should send him an email and let him know. Hey Gus, here's what I'm thinking for the week. But yeah, so I wanted to see us establish the pass and start. Let's get Jacurri comfortable with some short to intermediate passes. and try and loosen the box up for a little bit for RJ Harvey. So I was happy to see, that we're making the attempt to throw to Kobe Hudson on the first play of the game. Obviously, it didn't work out. He gets injured, and our thoughts are, with him. Hopefully, he's got a speedy return and comes back quickly. But just, not another great performance by Jacurri throwing the ball. And, people have alluded to that all season long, that during practice, he's not the best passer. And I think that it's become pretty evident that we have what we have seen with Jacurri. He's going to be dynamic with his feet. But if he has to go through reads and progressions and make some of those tougher throws, he's probably not as reliable as a quarterback with his arm as you would like him to be.
8 of 17, 96 yards was the stat line, Brian. 2 INTs.
Yeah.
Just
two
not,
INTs, yeah.
Just not good enough, unfortunately, on that one. It's so funny. I saw someone tweet on social media. I wish I remember who. How did Gus go in the portal and find 2 quarterbacks who can't throw?
Yeah, right.
How do you go find 2 quarterbacks in the portal? Neither one of them can actually throw the football. And things were not probably any better as the game started. Word leaked out that UCF would be without 2 defensive starters. Mac McWilliams did not play. We learned afterwards it's a hamstring. Ladarius Tennyson did not play. We learned afterwards, again, a case of vertigo, which seems pretty concerning. And hopefully things are well there, Brian. But we're down 2 defensive players at the beginning of the game, too. Obviously, 2 guys from a secondary that's already kind of pretty thin and has been inconsistent. And BYU took advantage. You just saw them, pick on some guys throughout the game. You could tell from the start it was going to be a bit of a challenge. One of the very first things I saw, and again, I'm not at least bit of an expert in football, so please don't assume I know everything, right? But the very first touchdown by Jake Retzlaff, I think it was a third and something. It was a long distance, and UCF tried to run a bit of a stunt. I think they had Malachi Lones trying to come to the outside. Ethan Barr was trying to come inside. They run into each other, right? It wasn't a terrible collision, but enough to knock both off course. Barr then takes 2 steps to the right. Wetzlaff has a wide open lane, and then all you see is Ethan Barr chasing him down the rest of the field, 20-something yards for a touchdown. And at that point, it's like, oh my goodness, like we're down starters, we're down players, we're running into each other. It was just like, man, what is this? What more could happen defensively for this team?
It's funny. I was really impressed with Retzlaff, the quarterback for BYU, and that's a really fun story, right? He, not to bring religion into it.
Here we go, Brian.
He is a Jewish quarterback playing for a predominantly Mormon school, so it's just one of those fun stories. As our friend Deli Drama would say, how can you not be romantic about college football? But he had himself a day, right? He was tearing up our defense. He was scrambling for 20 plus yards, throwing the ball at will. And some of the injuries that you mentioned prior to the game starting, I think we also lost Braden Marshall at one point. He went down.
The game.
He went down. So, the defense is banged up, right? And hopefully those players are able to return. But I guess the plus side is maybe we're going to see some of the younger guys come in here and get some meaningful playing time. And we'll see what they're all about, because they are the future of the program. But you just hate to see guys go down, and it was a tough day for the defense.
Yeah, we saw Chasen Johnson get the start from Mac McWilliams. Played okay, had a terrible call for pass interference. Just a call that was not anywhere close to pass interference.
I want to talk about that DPI pass interference call. So we had one of the notes that I wrote down was that I felt like the refs were inserting themselves a little too much in this game. That defensive pass interference call on Jason Johnson was extremely similar to the defensive pass interference call that we saw on the final drive for Iowa State last week. The sideline ref, who is right there, and this happens both the prior game and this game specifically, the sideline ref is right there. The play goes down, does not throw a flag. It's the back judge that comes from yards away, and he's the one that throws the flag, which is exactly what happened last week. So I don't know what's going on with these Big 12 refs, and I'm certainly not blaming the loss on the refs at all, but there's some things that, it makes you scratch your head. Like, what is this back judge ref seeing that the sideline ref, who is right there, that's right in the face of the action, is not seeing, not throwing the flag? It's just mind-boggling. I don't understand what these back judges are doing. And some of these calls, I feel like, just let the guys play, right?
Yeah, right. There was a lot of hand fighting. I think they both had their hands on each other, right? There was hand play back and forth. And again, it isn't like he chasing that is. He didn't bump the receiver off the ability to catch the football. Like, he was still in position to catch the ball. He did not impede him by any way, shape, or form. Was there contact before? Sure, but it was contact on both guys. I think that's got to be a let the play thing play out. You don't need that. But I think the other penalty, Brian, and we're probably, I don't know if we're getting this later on, but there was a penalty by Ja'Cory Brown, who breaks off a really nice run. We're storming, we're getting close to the goal line here. I think it's 1st and 10. We're on the 15. He breaks out a nice run to the 5-yard line. So we're going to be like 1st and 10 or whatever at that point. And he knocks that guy over. And as he kind of is moving forward, he admittedly does get over the guy and do a little flex and, stand over. And I don't know what was said.
He did not do a flex. Don't give me that.
It was a little like,
there was no
his arms
flex.
a little bit. I said little. And there's a ref right there to your point, looking right at it, flag in the air, and 15-yard penalty for Ja'Cory Brown. That puts us back from the BYU 10 to the BYU 25. And then it just, from there, it just falls apart. But it felt like that was the one chance we had. And positive momentum. What's the score at this point? Let me look at this again. It was 17-7 BYU at this point. So we score here 17-14, right?
And we're moving the ball.
Maybe you have a chance. And we're moving the ball really well. And that sort of derails us. BYU jumps off sides the next play. 3rd down, incomplete pass to Randy Pittman. Then we settle for a Grant Reddick field goal. But that was another tough one that was really interesting. And look, we're going to talk about Gus in a few minutes. So everybody sit tight. I'm sure there's a lot of people want to talk about Gus. One thing he said post-game that really was interesting to me, Trace, I think, asked him specifically and said, hey, what did you see on that penalty from Ja'Cory Brown? And Gus was like, didn't know it. Didn't know what was going on. I thought it was on us. I was too busy looking at the next play. I don't know, man. Again, Monday morning quarterback, but not even knowing situation, what's happening, defending the player. That was either a really bad answer or just kind of speaks to what Gus is doing and why it's difficult for him to be a head coach and a play caller. Because if he's not seeing what's happening on the field and is too busy with his head in his clipboard, figuring out the next series of plays and not knowing what the down at distance is, not knowing what just happened. I think he said he assumed it was on them. It was on BYU for a late hit on the quarterback. Again, you can money quarterback, all this stuff, but that was a really interesting comment by Gus.
Yeah, I mean, I'll start with the penalty. I was jumping up and down when they threw the flag because I didn't think personally that, I mean, obviously I'm biased. I didn't want to see UCF get the flag, but I didn't think that it was an unsportsmanlike conduct worthy action by Ja'Cory. He gets hit out of bounds and kind of knocks the defender down. And to me, it just kind of looked like he looked down. It certainly wasn't like the Fiesta Bowl play where we're barking at, the quarterback that we had knocked down. That was obviously an unsportsmanlike conduct. But to me, this seemed innocent enough. I think had the ref not been right there, that flag doesn't get thrown. So perhaps it's just circumstance that the ref happened to be that close and decides to throw the flag. But the fact that Gus wasn't aware of it, kind of leads us to that point that we already probably believe, the majority of us, he shouldn't be the one calling plays to begin with. He needs to be the one running the team, staying on top of these things, being aware of, the big picture on the field. Obviously the ref's not going to change his mind just because Gus comes over and is yelling at the ref about, this or that. But yeah, he's got to be more aware of these things that are going on the field. And that was a critical point in the game where we needed those points. We needed to be able to keep up with BYU because we were already behind and we're not a team built to come from behind. Just another one of those mistakes that, that you scratch your head and you wonder how things may have developed differently in this game had they not happened the way they did.
Yeah, easy to money morning quarterback it. Maybe he's just giving an answer to that one because he doesn't want to throw somebody under the bus or whatnot. But I just found that comment interesting. Let's get into our categories here, Brian. I know this is something we tried last week. We'll spell out Sons, satisfactory, oh my God, not good enough, and star are the acronyms that we're using here for Sons. So we'll get through this. I'm sure this will kind of talk us through some of the other high points of the game. So I'll let you kick off if you're ready. I'll let you kick off.
You're going to let me go first? Okay.
I'll let you go first with your first S, Brian. Satisfactory. What do you got?
Satisfactory. Okay. So I've got Jacoby Jones in for Kobe. Jacoby Jones, we heard his name called several times. He did come in for relief for the wide receiver 1 position after Kobe went down. And it wasn't that Jacoby had a bad game in any way. I thought he had a good game for the situation that he was in, coming in for a hurt Kobe and having Ja'Cory as your quarterback, just, making those throws probably a little tougher than they should have been. But I thought he was good. I thought he was satisfactory, fulfilled the role, made some catches when we needed him to. So I was happy to see him get the reps and play as well as he did.
All right, satisfactory. I'm going to go with Grant Reddick, who again makes a field goal. But it's funny. I think you and I think it was in the group chat. I don't even know anymore. I have too many group chats. You and I are in a bit of a game week-long group chat with a couple of our friends who I'll keep anonymous because I don't know if they want their names associated with our tomfoolery here. But somebody in a chat I was in wrote, isn't it good to not have to worry about a field goal anymore? Like the adventures of if a field goal is going to go in or not. And that's not meant to be a knock at Colton Boomer. And hopefully there was a post this week. He's getting some surgery. So hopefully all goes well with Boomer and he heals and recovers and moves on. But it is kind of refreshing to not have to hold your breath when a field goal kicker comes out. And maybe this is way too soon to give Grant Reddick this kind of trust factor because college kickers are going to college kicker. But he's been solid in his time so far when we've needed him to come in. Maybe not the strongest leg in the world, but he's been solid. So I'll give a satisfactory to Grant Reddick, who seems to have at least stabilized the kicking game for UCF. It was one of those things that was typically the top of the list of issues, and it feels like that's been bumped down a ton over the past couple of weeks.
Yeah, that's a good one. He's been a bright spot, right, in our special teams. After going through the kicking woes that we've had for the last few years, it's nice to know that we've got Grant back there. And I agree. Whenever he comes on to kick, I don't feel any pressure. I don't feel like there's any, the sweat's not beating on my forehead. Oh my God, is he going to miss this kick? So he's been reliable so far, and hopefully he continues to do so.
But again, he also hasn't been in a pressure situation, so perhaps I'm going to eat these words if we ever need him to make a game winner at some point in time. So you guys can time.
The funny thing is, I tweeted before the game. My excitement was that Grant Reddick plays football today. So that's where we're at. We're for the excitement level for UCF football.
Yeah, and he's got a LinkedIn account. I respect anybody who's got a LinkedIn already. Yeah, I respect anybody who's out there with a LinkedIn. Brian, what was your oh my God?
So my oh my God, we touched on already. It was that 4th and 1 where UCF is. I don't know if they were quite in their territory, if they were on the 50-yard line.
They were on the 49. Sure they were on
49.
Their own 49. Okay. So
thank you.
Ostensibly half midfield.
Sure. So we'll call it midfield. 4th and 1. Let's establish that the offense can convert 4th downs, and Gus decides to punt. Now, again, we've already talked about it. There's nothing that I've seen from this defense that led me to believe that they were going to be reliable to go out and get a stop. So if you're Gus and you're trying to pin the BYU offense back, I don't see how the defense is going to be able to stop them. It's 4th and 1. You've got the Big 12's best running back in your backfield. You've got Ja'Cory Brown. You need 1 yard. Oh my God is the only thing I can say as to how we don't go for that on 4th down at home.
To me, it just, Brian, it just speaks to a larger mentality around, at this point, you're looking for any spark, anything to kind of give this team some juice and motivation. Shoot, give the fans a little juice, a little motivation, right? Let people know that we're not folding. We're not rolling over. We're going to come out there and fight. We want to be aggressive. We want to win the game. And that felt like a very safe, conservative call. And again, if you want to read into it, which you luckily can, you can read into it that Gus not trust his offense to get 1 yard.
I don't.
Fair. By the way, but if you're an offensive player, you're like, holy crap, Gus, Ja'Cory could fall forward and get a yard at this point.
Right.
Like we can figure this out. We can do a tush push, which UCF doesn't do, but like you could get us, we can get you a yard, Gus. So does that just show you the lack of trust he has in the offense? Now you could flip that and say, well, he must have a lot of trust in his defense, which and he sees more than we do. So if he's seeing something I'm not seeing, I'm happy to be educated on it. But I just think it's a message point. It's a point of you can't be the future of college football when you're 4th and 1 at midfield on a 3 and 4 team that's playing the number 11 team in the country at home on your homecoming, and you go, too risky to try to get this 1 yard.
And it wasn't like we had tried this before and it didn't work, and you decided to punt then, right? We did it the prior week and it worked just fine. Well,
you could also argue too, like if you trust your defense that much, then trust them to get a stop from midfield. right? Like if you have that much trust in your defense, then trust that, hey, you know what, we're going to get a stop, we're going to hold them to a field goal, which is actually what happens. But trust your defense to say, hey, I'm gonna put my defense in a bit of a bind here because I trust the fact that one, we're not even going to need them because we're going to get this first down. But two, if we don't for some reason, some catastrophic thing happens, that we are going to hold them and get the ball back and only be down by 10, and that's a whole new ball game, right?
Yeah.
But there's a lack of trust across the board. So that's a great, oh my God, what do you got for not good enough?
Not good enough is going to be our third down defense. I mean, really, it's the defense overall, but not being able to stop BYU on third down was just the story of the night, right? They had their way with us. Their offense moved pretty much at will. I can't think of a single time that BYU was forced to punt. I don't think that, I mean, I'm sure that they did during the game, but they had their way. The third down defense that we saw last week is still a problem. We cannot get off the field. And not only is it third down conversions that we're allowing, it's third and long that we are allowing almost every time. 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9. And they simply continue to convert. And like I said before, BYU was towards the bottom of the Big 12 in third down conversions. And yet we, you know, as a team, UCF made them look like they were, you know, this Heisman winning offense because they had just nothing that we could do to stop them on 3rd and long.
Yeah, they impose their will. I mean, every year, every time you turn on a football game, you hear announcers and people talk about it's a battle of the trenches, right? Who can win the line of scrimmage? Who can win the battle up front? And it was very clear BYU could win the battle up front and push us around and get. I mean, I think they were averaging like 6 yards a play in the first quarter, right? I mean, that's damn near half a first down just off one play, right? They were able to push UCF around, push the D line around, you know, get blocks. And to your point, there was really no resistance, no stopping. As a fan, you watch that and go, "There's no chance we're going to stop this 3rd and short. There's no chance we're stopping this 4th and short." Like it already feels like a defeatist attitude. But you're absolutely right. But I'm going to stay on the defensive side for my not good enough, Brian. Does anybody on this team know how to tackle? Because it did not appear as though many have done so. I try not to call out players, Brian, because I mean, these are college kids trying as hard as they can, and they're I'm sure they're working hard. Nobody means to do some of these things, but Quadric Bullard had a really tough afternoon. The Retzlaff TD we talked about the first quarter, he takes a swipe at him there, gets nowhere close to him. Another TD late in the game, you know, nothing there. He had a bad PI called to Quadric Bullard. Jakari Henderson got pushed around a little bit on defense. Brandon Adams got blocked for like 7 yards straight by a receiver. Another key point in the game. Let me make sure I want to get the timestamp on this. It was a 4th down. 4th down by BYU, and they decide to go for it. And this is where, again, UCF really needs to get them off the field. Let me see if I can find it. And I probably should have prepared this in advance. That'd have been a lot better. But Lassiter, the wide receiver for BYU, catches the ball on the sideline, and 2 guys miss a tackle, and he jumps in the air and extends the ball past the first down marker.
I know exactly
to get a key first down that we needed that they needed on a situation where we needed a key stop. Again, 2 guys had him. 2 guys had their hands on him. And he's able to break both those tackles and pull a Michael Jordan, like spread eagle, throw the ball across the line there to get a first down. Just a terrible display of tackling.
As I do when I'm watching the game from home, I listen to the Mark Daniels radio broadcast, and he was, I mean, extremely frustrated when that play happened. Right, as you said, we had 2 defenders right there, hands on the receiver who has the ball, and he's several yards away from the line to get that first down, and yet he somehow manages to wiggle out of both guys and do this miraculous jump and get the first down. Completely mind-boggling that the defense still is unable to tackle this far into the season. And I don't have an answer for you as to why we're still having these issues tackling.
Another part of it too, late in that 3rd quarter, or I guess late in the 2nd quarter, I would have Brian. You know, UCF gets the field goal 17-10, and BYU literally gets the ball back and throws a 62-yard touchdown. Right, again, another missed assignment, another kind of broken tackle assignment. I mean, the secondary was just getting burned left and right all day. Missed tackles, missed assignments, guys kind of running open. It was a tough look. So not good enough for me is the tackling and sort of the level of, I don't want to say care, because I'm trying to be careful not to use the Q word on this one, right? But it looks like there were some less than stellar effort put out there by a few guys.
Yeah. And to your point, this goes along with the tackling, was that giant touchdown that BYU had to end the first half of the game, which just really felt like a backbreaker at that point, right? It felt like we were kind of in the game for at least part of the first half, and then they're able to just continue to break tackles. They get that first down that you referred to, and then they get that huge touchdown at the end of the first half, and the game just felt over at that point.
All right, last S is for star, Brian. Let's do some positivity here. Who was a star for you in this game?
All right, so the only bright spot that I saw was the arrival of quarterback Dylan Risk, who's able to get in the fourth quarter. We saw him come in relief of Ja'Cory Brown. Gus and the offense, I guess, looking for a little bit of a spark there, get some of the younger guys some reps because the game was effectively over at that point. Kind of ish, I guess. It felt like it was over to me. I guess maybe the players.
It was over, Brian.
Yeah. Okay.
You
fine.
can say
Fair enough.
You can say it.
It was over. But
yes.
So Dylan comes in and he looked sharp, right? He's able to throw the ball fairly effectively. That something we haven't seen all season. He looked good passing the ball. Leads the Knights on 2 touchdown drives with both his arm and moving around in the pocket, moving with his legs a little bit. So I thought, he did a great job coming in, seizing the opportunity to get some film before he goes and transfers out like all the other players we're going to lose at the end of this season. But I was really happy to see him get in there. And do I dare say, do we have a quarterback controversy here?
God, Brian.
Who's going to be our starter next week? Is it going to be Dylan? Is it going to be EJ? Are we going to see some more Ja'Cory come in? What's going to happen? But I thought that he was really good in relief, and I thought he got my star this week.
That just means it's going to be KJ who starts,
yeah,
right? Because that's what Gus is going to do. All right, I'm glad you brought this up. A couple things on Dylan Risk. One, he went to my high school, so I always kind of root and follow for Dylan Risk. So I want to put that out there up front. Like I've always rooted for Dylan Risk, and when he came to UCF, 6 of 10, 100 yards and a touchdown through the air, 31 yards on the ground. Again, I don't think he's I know he's not a natural scrambler. He's one that to scramble for yardage, not scramble as part of the offense. 2. Listen, he seems sharp, but Dylan Risk has done as much cardio as I've been doing because brother looked like he was dying out there after a couple of those plays. I mean, he hands on hips, like sucking wind, trying to do everything he could. So if Dylan Risk is the starter, we're going to need to get him some additional reps on the Stairmaster or something because we're going to need him for a full game. Look, you can detract this all you want. And I saw a lot of this on social media. Well, he's played against their third string, and of course he's going to look great, and they didn't prepare for him. And that's all probably true, right? But it's very clear the difference between Dylan Risk and the 3 quarterbacks we've seen thus far. Well, I take that back because I don't want to put this on EJ because I don't think we saw enough of EJ. The 2 quarterbacks we've seen so far is he certainly seems to be a much better thrower of the football than he is a runner of the football. And I think that's the major difference you saw in Dylan Risk in the very short 18-play situation we got out of him. So to your point, does Gus now say, all right, let me give the thrower of the football quarterback a shot versus going with Ja'Cory or a KJ type? I have no idea. Post-game, he was non-committal to his quarterback is. So your guess is as good as mine as to what he's thinking. But Dylan did come in and provide a spark. He's a bit of a gamer per se, right? Like I don't think his measurables jump off the charts at you. I don't think you look at this guy and say, "Wow, look at that arm. He's got a rocket for an arm." I don't think any of those things really jump off at you. I did have somebody text me mid-season and said that they had heard that players had said, and again, I hate to do innuendos because I'm not there, but this is the hearsay part I heard, is that players had said that Dylan Risk had probably the best, most accurate arm on the team. That they thought EJ had sort of the livest arm and the biggest arm, but Dylan had the best, sort of most accurate arm on the team and a really strong arm and most command potentially of the passing game. And it was a bit of a head scratcher why he wasn't getting more time. So maybe Dylan Risk is the guy. I don't know. But here's the thing I thought was super weird as well, Brian. Post game, when asked about this, Gus says, yeah, I want to go spark, yada, 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 and wanted to, preserve that red shirt thing for EJ. What the hell is he preserving a red shirt for at this point? Like, I don't understand that. Like, if EJ was the guy then let him in there. He's the backup quarterback, per what Gus said at the very same press conference last Monday. When he was asked about it, he said EJ is going to be number 2. He's getting the number 2 reps. Why was he our backup quarterback if we didn't want to use a redshirt? If what he meant to say was, hey, this is a blowout, and I didn't want to put the kid in there for a blowout because I want to save him for something else. All right, fine. But like, we're thinking about red shirts already. We're thinking like, oh my goodness. Like, I just found that really, really weird that we're thinking about preserving a red shirts in that moment.
If we're thinking about preserving red shirts, why are we sending him in the prior game when Jacurri's helmet came off?
Sure.
For one play? You've got 3 other quarterbacks. There are 2 other quarterbacks. If Jacurri had to come out of the game, why not throw KJ in there to hand the ball off, or throw Dylan out there at one point? It baffles me. I don't understand.
Dylan obviously burned his had a red shirt last year, so he cannot redshirt anymore, right? So Correct. He already took his redshirt year. So to your point, there's no play clock or game clock, I guess, for Dylan Risk. Or you could have trotted him out there, take that one snap and handoff instead of trotting EJ out there. Again, I don't want to say mismanagement, but look at the facts in front of you and figure out what to do with that. But who knows, man? Coin flip on if Dylan Risk starts this week. I wonder if Gus is going to say, I think we're going to do this thing again where he's going to try to do some subterfuge to get Arizona to have to prepare for everybody. And I'm sure you and I will probably all figure it out on Saturday, 3:30 when somebody trots out to the field in a space uniform and takes the first snap and who that person is. But he definitely gave us a spark. I'll give him that. I'll give the kid that. He took the most of his opportunity, gave us a spark, made some big plays. Let's see if Gus finds out what to use him.
This is not Gus's style to change quarterbacks so often. And certainly if we did decide to start Dylan in this game next week, he would be our 4th starting quarterback this season. So just a complete rotation of guys. I heard some folks calling for a 2 quarterback system the way that Florida has been running their team this year. Now, obviously, Florida's not some national, title contender that we want to emulate, but they have had success with their 2 quarterback system, Mertz and Lagway. Is there a chance that we see both Jacurri Brown and Dylan? To your point, Dylan has been the quarterback that most folks seem to imply is the better passer, which is part of the offense that we have not seen have any success this season, right? Jacurri is dynamic with his legs. So perhaps we wind up in a situation where we're running this 2 quarterback system. I know they say if you've got 2 quarterbacks, you don't have one, but I mean, we're this far into the season and we still don't have a quarterback. So what do we have to lose at this point? He's already burned his red shirt. Let's see what the kid can do. Let him air it out.
Oh, I think the only difference with the Lagway Mertz situation, and now it's Lagway's show because Mertz is hurt, but Lagway could throw the ball a little bit too. Like if you put Jacurri in there, I think again, one of our good friends in a group chat may or may not have called him Jacurri Gatewood, because at that point, that's all that becomes, right? Is if Jacurri is coming in the game. Although is it Jacurri or Jacari? I get yelled at all the time for this. I may
JB.
JB's even better. See, Gus has it right. Maybe that's the one thing Gus has. If JB's in, that it's going to probably be more of a running play than a throwing play. So that may be the only reason that you don't want to do that. But sit tight. I guess we'll keep it, on top of our mind all week on the Sons of UCF stuff. We'll make sure as soon as we know or hear, we'll tell you. I'm sure Gus will be asked on Monday and probably tell everyone to go pound sand. Brian, my star of the game is a name that we're not talking a lot about. And again, maybe this game was different because of the score. Dalen Dotson, who was meant to be a defensive end for UCF, ended up getting pushed inside to do a little bit of work when John Walker went out, is now kind of getting more of those reps on the outside. I think Isaiah Nixon got banged up in the Iowa State game. He did not play against BYU. Dalen Dotson, 8 total tackles, 2 sacks, 3 TFLs, 1 forced fumble, and a quarterback hit. He actually popped out. He showed out pretty well from a film perspective. And here's the fun fact for you, Brian. Dalen Dotson leads the team in sacks and tackles for loss.
Does he really?
Dalen Dotson, with 3 sacks on the year, leads the team in sacks and tackles for loss with 3 tackles for loss in this game alone. So a name that we're not thinking a lot about, although he did bring us the ever famous "Charge on, stupid." That was the Dalen Dotson quote, which may end up being the best thing that we get out of the season.
It is the best thing that we get out of this season. Absolutely.
Came from Dalen Dotson. Again, not a name that none of us were talking about. This was Malachi Lawrence's year, double-digit sacks, and Nigel Lee Kelly, and he's going to do this. And Dalen Dotson ends up being the guy that comes in, a kid that was a transfer portal pickup. Another of those situations, though, Brian, where we took a kid from a lower level school. I think he was at UT Martin, maybe. We took him from a lower level program, right. bring him up to sort of the FBS level, and you kind of see what you get, right? So Dalen Dotson, at this point, maybe the best transfer on this defense. I know Pace is getting a lot of love, but he's kind of been, a no-show the last couple of weeks. I don't have this on record, Brian. I know you keep yourself in really good shape, so this may not be fair. I think you're faster than Ethan Barr. I don't know this to be true. I think if you gave me Brian Peterson versus Ethan Barr in a race, I may have you. You may be the favorite. I'm not gonna lie to you.
That's for your son's plus content.
Okay.
It's going to be the 40-yard dash between me and Ethan Barr. That's coming in the offseason. Don't worry.
Yeah, your house in this Celsius, so I know you got the energy. So I think Brian Peterson faster than Ethan Barr, but no, Dalen Dotson may just be the best transfer on this defense right now. And this is a great question, Brian. Is where do we go from here? What happens now? Obviously, now we know where UCF's at. Another 5-game losing streak, another loss in the Big 12, 3-5 on the season. Where does UCF turn next? Where do we go? What happens? Who stays? Who goes? All that good chatter. We know you want to talk about it, so we're gonna do that for you. We're gonna take a quick break right here. When we come back on the other side of this, we'll talk about UCF future. What's gonna happen next? Who stays around? Who doesn't stay around? Reckless speculation, as only we can do here at the Sons of UCF. So stay around. Don't go anywhere. The Sons of UCF is brought to you by Alumni Hall. Look, being a supporter of your university is more than a diploma on the wall. It means cheering them to victory and singing the fight song. It's a part of who you are. And Alumni Hall understands the need to showcase that school spirit and pride in every day of your life. That's why they're proud to have their new shop located at 4100 North Alafaya Trail, dedicated specifically to UCF merchandise. If it's UCF gear you want, from a unique selection of clothing for the entire family, Alumni Hall has you covered. They are now the hometown college store for our great fan base here at UCF. Again, check them out, 4100 North Alafaya Trail, or go to alumnihall.com, search UCF to make sure you are a part of the action. All right, Sons, today we're back. Adam and Brian with you again. All right, Brian, look, a lot of people want to talk about this topic. I, for one, am interested in it, and I understand why it needs to be talked about, but a lot of people are obviously looking at this season and saying, hey, this is a lost year at this point, 3-5. A lot of conversation about Gus, about the staff, about the players, who stays, who goes, what's happening, who to blame here. And the reality is sometimes this conversation, 8 games into the season isn't really very fruitful. There's nothing that's probably going to be done about it right now today. But I know it's on the minds of fans. I know some people are frustrated and fed up with even talking about this. Some people, this is all they can think about, Brian. So we're here to try to please the masses. So we're going to talk a little bit about what this means for the future of UCF, right? Obviously right now, 3-5 on the year, and what this means for the season. Here's the thing that I thought of, Brian. And I think what's interesting about it is, if you have been a fan a long time, like you and I have been, what I realize now is this season is just going to be another scar of UCF seasons past. Like we've been through this before. 2011 comes to mind, right? Obviously 2015 absolutely comes to mind, right? We've been through seasons like this where it's a lost season. It's a lost cause. You had hope and UCF hurt you and burned you. And it's a scar that we all wear if you've been rooting for this team for the amount of years that you and I have. This is just going to be one of those seasons that's going to be a scar. You're just going to have to remember it, wear it, own it, and just hope it turns into the best, because at this point, I don't know that we have a ton of ability to turn this thing around. Last year, sure, UCF did. This is a different team. This is not the same team as last year. Are there winnable games with Utah coming up? Yeah, maybe. West Virginia, I don't know. They look pretty good with their backup quarterback. We don't lose a space game. Okay, maybe. Arizona State, that's going to be a tough road trip, probably a really late kickoff. So at this point for me, Brian, this is just, I'm willing and ready to wear this season as a scar, another scar on the seasons of UCF fandom. I'm ready to slice it right here in the forearm and make another scar for 2024.
I mean, the season is effectively over. No matter what the coaches or Gus may tell you, that we can pick up the pieces and move forward from here. The season is over. We're not going to be in contention for anything going in to the
Wait, are you telling me, is this exclusive? Because Gus kept telling me that all of our goals are in front of us.
Our goals are not. I'm here to tell you that all of our goals are not in front of us. Actually, the only goal that we have in front of us that I'm looking for us to keep is to keep the space game streak alive. That is the only thing that we have left this season that I want to see us do. I want to see us continue to win. We need to win next week at Arizona, a team that we certainly could beat. We'll get into that. I'm sure you guys will talk about that later on during this week, but we need to preserve the space game winning streak. And that is the only goal that we still have ahead of us that we can work towards at this point. It's a funny thing in these seasons past that you alluded to, that where UCF finds itself in this situation where we're down, the season's over. George O'Leary, when he was coaching the team, famously had lots of ups and downs. We'd have a 10-game win season, and then we'd follow it up with a 4-8 season. And that certainly feels like UCF could be on a 4-8 collision course at this point. We've got to find a way to win at least the space game to put us at 4 wins. But with the way that NIL and the transfer portal works nowadays, we're in a totally new era of college football, right? So the thing that I would say I would like to see us do is play the young guys, get these guys in there that are the recruits coming in, let them get, valuable playing time. Let's get them reps, and let's prepare for the upcoming 2025 season. Which is something that you would have done in the past, right? Once you think your season's over, you get the younger guys in there and you kind of work through some of those growing pains. But with the transfer portal and NIL nowadays, you don't know who's going to be on your roster next year, right? And a lot of UCF fans are frustrated with the way that we have performed so far, and they're kind of expecting the floodgates to open, and some of these guys transfer out. I mentioned Dylan Risk last year. Is he going to be on the team next year? So it's really tough for me to say, let's put the young guys in there because we're building for tomorrow. We're building for the next season because this season is over. But at the same time, you don't know what you're going to have next season. So it's really a conundrum. And I'm really curious to see how this college football landscape plays out with players in the transfer portal. And we're all kind of learning in real time as we go through here. But yeah, on to the next one, right? We're hopefully we're at home. Arizona seems like they're beatable, and let's go out and let's get a win for the space game.
Can't believe you left off one of your goals, which is to have UCF wear better uniforms every week and continue to wear those throwback helmets, which we're fantastic. You and I were texting the other day. I think you and I are going to have to start a crusade together. You are on the pro gold crusade, in case anyone's out there confused about this, Brad, by the way. And if you are, cut down on the meds. Brian is very pro wearing gold, having gold in his life. I think I'm now pro Lance UCF logo. I think that Lance logo is sharp, man. I know the Stack logo is cool and everything. Don't get me wrong, but like, there's some creativity. There's some personality to that Lance logo. The Stack UCF is literally just UCF, right? Not that it's not good or cool or fun, but like the Lance through the logo, the Knights, that whole thing. Like, so that could be our goal this season. Our common goal is Brian wants gold. I think I want more Lance logo.
I have a soft spot for the Lance logo. Obviously, that was the that was the logo when I was in school. So I have a soft spot in my heart for it. The state of Florida UCF logo fans are absolutely in an uproar right now that we're talking about using the Lance logo more and not using the state of Florida UCF throwback logo more. But I think the Lance logo is more fun.
Yeah, but my thing with that though, Brian, every school in the state of Florida could use the state of Florida logo. You know what I mean? Like FAU uses it right now. I think they just write Atlantic on it. Like anybody can use the state of Florida. So that's not it's behind me. If you're watching on video, it's a little behind me over my head.
On the flag, yeah.
Anybody can use that. I think the Lance is unique to UCF.
And it looked really good on those gold helmets yesterday, along with the night mode uniform. Just chef's kiss. It was so good. So I mean, there's a bright spot for you. We looked fantastic on TV. Those helmets, they popped. That Lance logo was just it was so good. And those night mode jerseys were just it was a great combination. We didn't win the game, but we won the uniform day. Let me tell you.
You just made me a tad uncomfortable there, but I'll move past it. Let's it was some of that. Let's talk about the other main topic that really took place this week, Brian, and obviously you saw it at the game. Gus Malzahn is now getting the boo birds as if he wasn't getting them before. Obviously, Spirit Splash, I think we all saw the video. You can check out. I think Andrew Cherico had it posted at one point on his social media accounts. Gus went out and obviously addresses the crowd like you do every Spirit Splash, and he heard the boos. There was a fire Gus chant that allegedly broke out at some point in time during the game. There's a video of Gus walking out the field to a chorus of boos, a chorus of fire Gus's. The tide is certainly turning, Brian, on this one. And look, for one, I love like ruining a cool tradition like Spirit Splash by booing your head coach? No, but unfortunately, it's a results-driven business, and if you have the ability to voice your displeasure with somebody who's in charge of something that you care about, that's an outlet, that's an avenue as a sports fan. But where do we go from here? Because obviously, I would say if we polled, actually, I'm curious. I'm sure Trey should ask this, and I'm sure he'll get yelled at by UCF for it. But if you polled the fan base right now, fire Gus, yes or no? What do you think the split would be? What do you think out of 100 respondents, fire Gus? What do you think the split would be?
80-20?
Pro
80 in
pro.
favor of firing Gus.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so what do we do now? Like, how do we go forward as fans? And here's one thing I do want to point out. I will start by saying I am not going to be a Gus apologist. I do think that this program has regressed over the last couple of seasons. I understand that he did not make a single play in the field on Saturday, but the reality is that he put this roster together. He's making the decisions about what's happening in and around. You can take this year and say, okay, fine, whatever. But this has been a couple of seasons worth of things that have taken place inside the program that have me thinking, is Gus really the right fit for this job? But that notwithstanding, Brian, the only thing to keep in mind, if you get rid of Gus, you're basically rebuilding again, right? Because the staff is going to go too, right? You're not retaining probably the majority of the staff. Maybe one or two guys hang around, but the staff goes. That probably means that the support staff goes as well, right? So some of the guys who support from recruiting, some of the guys who support from, maybe athletic training, outside of like the Eric DeSalvos and Jimmy Skiles' positions with UCF, AA, most of the staff goes, right? Recruits are probably going to start flipping, changing their mind. Transfer portal guys probably
They've already started transferring.
Fair. No, that's fair. So it's a complete rebuild. Now, we've seen these things happen before where somebody comes in a first year. Indiana was on College Game Day. They're doing it right now. They brought in a new coach, Kurt Signetti, and he's turned that team around. So it's not impossible. But if we get rid of Gus, we're basically saying, hey, we're going to have to take a step back, and we're going to be okay doing that. Now, the counter argument is, what if we don't get rid of Gus? Yeah. Then we're going to continue to take steps back on their own, Brian. So I don't know where to go with this. It's obviously clear that there's some heat, there's some pressure. Terry Mohajir did his second ever podcast where he basically told fans, be patient. Be patient. I hear you, I think was his tweet. I hear you, Night Nation. We're going to get this thing turned around, Brian. But I think it's tough for fans to believe in that right now, being the results that are on the field and what you're seeing from this team.
So I'll give you guys a little bit of insight. Adam and I were talking about this after the Iowa State game last week. And as you know, I write columns for Sons of UCF. The column that I was going to write, that I was considering, and I'd been taking some notes down on, is if I was the athletic director, so if I was in Terry's shoes, what would I do midway through the season at this point, looking forward? And I'll give you some of my thoughts. I did not end up putting them down into a column just because I didn't know that it was going to be well received. Not that I'm a Gus apologist, and I'm certainly not. I would have to say I'm out on the Gus bus. I'm part of that 80% that's calling for him to go rather than to stay. But from an economics standpoint, whether we like him, dislike him, want him to stay, want him to leave, Terry is in a spot where he doesn't necessarily have the money to fire Gus tomorrow, right? So, right. Adam, as you brought up, let's say that we pull the rug out from under the team tomorrow, and we say, Gus, you're relieved of your duties. He's got a $12 million buyout, and it's not just the $12 million buyout that we have; it's the $12 million buyout just for him. And then we've got to pay some of these other coaches who are also under contract to leave as well. So that $12 million is probably closer to $15 million, maybe somewhere in the $15 to $18 million. We're not even getting a full revenue share check from the Big 12 yet, right? We have to remember this is just the second year of the Big 12. We're not getting the paychecks that some of these other schools are getting, not only from their donors, but from a media rights standpoint, right? So even if we decide that Gus is not the future, we simply do not have the money to fire Gus tomorrow, even though most of us would probably like to see him gone. So my compromise is that if I'm Terry, I'm sitting Gus down and I'm saying, look, we did this last year where partway through the season, you gave up play calling. You did this at Auburn. There is obviously some value to having Gus as our head coach because he's such a great recruiter and he's the face for the program and he's well respected in the college football community. But as far as building an offense, putting it on the field, evaluating talent, I think those best days are behind him, right? So I think that if you're Terry and you're looking for the future of the program, you don't have $15, $20 million to blow the staff up. Is there enough talent here that we have brought in with these recruiting classes, to kind of salvage where the program is, considering that we're only in our second year of the Big 12, to let Gus be the face of the program, take away the play calling from him, let him be the CEO of the program, and let some of these younger coaches come in and razzle dazzle us with their offensive play calling, get these guys, the coaching that needs to be done. Obviously, Ted Roof is our defensive coordinator. He's not the future of our defense, right? He was a friend hire, a buddy hire, if that's what you want to call it. Gus needs to be relieved of some of these hiring duties. And I don't want to get into a situation where we've got a head coach that's having a defensive coordinator like Randy Shannon and Josh Heupel were, but we need to have some younger coaches come in here and bring a spark. And now if that means that Gus has to give up his play calling, I don't see anybody arguing that Gus's offense is just putting up crazy numbers and the offense is what it is, right? I think his best days are behind him. So I think if I'm Terry, I'm looking at the future of the program. I don't want to hit the blow up button yet, just because we don't have the money to pay for it. And we do have these recruiting classes coming in. So maybe there's a middle ground where we're able to salvage Coach Malzahn being the face of our program moving forward. It's a tough spot for UCF to be in.
I think my hot take, Brian, is I think if it's more likely Gus decides to leave on his own, because part of me has to wonder how much longer it's clear at this point, like we need a bit of an overhaul, right? We need a bit of a rebuild in some respects. That's probably going to mean Gus gutting some staff members, a lot of guys he brought over here, a lot of personal friends of his. You read that column from ESPN in like 2020, how Gus continues to kind of retread through the same like 4 or 5 coaches over and over again. He's probably going to have to move on from some of those coaches, right? And make some changes there. That probably means play calling is back on the table in terms of who calls plays. That probably means that you have to kind of look all across the board. You're going to lose some additional recruiting. Like at the age that Gus is at, he's got generational money at this point. Obviously we know, and I don't want to bring this in, it's not necessarily fair, but we know that family is important to Gus. He's had some scares in his family the last couple of seasons, last couple of years that are take precedent over football as well. They should. Part of me just wonders if there isn't the common ground you're talking about isn't going to be Gus kind of being like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore, man. I don't know if I'm in. He's made a lot of comments. If you kind of read between the lines and all kind of the non-speak of his pressers, I think it's very obvious that he is, I don't want to say frustrated, but he doesn't love the era of college football we're in now. Doesn't love the era of NIL and 4 games that I'm sitting out redshirt wise and, transfer portal. I think he's trying to embrace it. And he keeps saying, yeah, it's the era of college football. You got to embrace it. But I think at some point in time, does he go the way of like a Nick Saban where he says, like, I just don't want to deal with this anymore. Like, I have money. Like, I don't want to do this anymore. So I wonder if the middle ground you're talking about isn't Gus going to Terry and saying, listen, I'm not so sure this is for me anymore. And Terry's saying, you know what? I agree. Let's find a number that we can come to agreement on that maybe isn't the full 12, but isn't nothing, because Gus is not dumb, and nobody out there would walk away from $12 million and say, you know what, I'm fine, I'm okay. Like Gus is a good business person. He's Jimmy Sexton, his agent, is a very good business person. They're not letting Gus walk without anything, right? So to your point, what's the common ground? What's it going to take us? Gus says, hey, I think maybe this is past me. I think I'm done. Terry's saying, hey, you know what? I respect that. Maybe it's time to move on. Let's talk about a number. I think that's maybe your most likely scenario if just based on the optics. Now, I do think if Terry had the money, if UCF had, what people call FU money, if Terry had that today, he probably would fire Gus, but he doesn't, right? And so I think that's maybe, in my view, the most likely scenario.
Yeah, we're not, we have to remember, right? We're not Michigan. We're not Ohio State. We're not Alabama. We don't have the money to be throwing around to just fire a coach because we're unhappy. I mean, even Florida hasn't done that with Billy Napier yet, right? There were rumors going around that he was going to get the can, and they've got SEC money and all kinds of money to play with. So you got to remember that we are still a young program. So I think it's very possible that by the end of this season, we see a Gus that's just, burnt out, right? In his post-game presser yesterday, that's kind of the sense that he gave everybody was that, he's run down, he's burnt out. This isn't fun anymore, right? We're not having fun, and he isn't either, right? He doesn't want to be losing. And I think that he himself is kind of scratching his head like, how did we wind up in this situation?
Yeah.
Before the season started, he went out and he went hard on the transfer portal. He's had these recruiting classes come in. He got who he thought was the quarterback that we needed. And I think that he is just as disappointed in this season as a lot of folks are. Whether he, should have seen it coming or not is another topic. But I think that we could very well see a situation where he decides to hang it up, right? Before he came to UCF, after he'd left Auburn, there was, I think he was going to be like a media personality. So maybe there's a future for him in college football.
I'm sorry, Gus and personality didn't. Something about that sentence didn't align for me, but continue. I'm sorry.
He loves the game of football, right? So I don't think that he ever wants to walk away from it. And I think that, as any college coach out there, they've got this will to be around it until the very end, right? You look at Lee Corso, who's still on College game day just because he loves to be around college football. I don't think Gus is any different, right? He's not going to want to walk away, but there might come a time where, maybe, some family is in his ear and maybe Terry's in his ear and they say, look, this, go enjoy, your retirement, go, this isn't for you anymore. It's completely understandable if you want to try and hang the cleats up from a coaching perspective.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, maybe he does media for a year and then sees what's available if he wants to hop back in, right? We've seen that happen. Shoot, I hear a lot about the fact, I don't know if you know this, Brian, he used to be a high school coach. So maybe he goes back and he runs the offense at, whatever, Springdale High or whatever you want. Like maybe there's options for him there. I think Terry's in a really interesting spot though, Brian, because look, we're not a 100-year-old university. You don't have that generational money that's laying around UCF. With each and every passing loss, again, people are certainly dramatic in the moment, right? They're emotional. I'm not paying anymore. I'm canceling my subscription. I'm you hear a lot of that, right? But this is an interesting time for UCF because the money is going to be even more important. The house settlement's coming up. What's going to happen with that if that gets adjudicated and there's a pool of money that you have a salary cap? Where's that coming from? This is not a time where Terry can lose a significant part of the donor base, right? And again, guys like you and me, we're a drop in the bucket for Terry's donor base, right? But you add up, a 10,000 of guys like you and me, and it becomes a little bit more challenging for Terry. But you lose the Taylor Gehrings, the John Giulianos. That's where Terry starts to have some of those challenges. So I think to your point, something has to sort of work itself out here, and I don't know what that is. I don't know how that works out. I don't know where this goes. But again, I think it's fair at this point to question whether or not Gus stays around. I think it's fair to say that maybe this experiment has not worked out as well as we all thought it would. That doesn't mean that Gus doesn't or hasn't done some good things for UCF, but all good things come to an end. And by the way, Brian, I didn't even talk about the other couple things that happened. There's rumors about health inspector shutting down parts of the food yesterday. We couldn't get the stadium clock correct.
The stadium clock. Oh my God.
Please reset the play like 19 times. I don't know who had their finger on the button, but there's a lot of people saying volleyball's not doing great. Women's soccer got bounced out. There's a lot of people looking at UCF right now and saying, what are we doing around here? And I think Terry's got to figure out a way. He said in his little podcast, it's easy to lead in good times. It's hard to lead during bad times. Well, Terry, you're about to figure that out. And we're about to find out what kind of leader we have at Terry Mohajir, because this certainly feels like the arrow is pointing down. And it's some of the very core things we love here at UCF.
Let me tell you, I for one am just super excited that I did not pull the trigger and try the lobster roll, knowing what we know now about the food being shut down in the stadium, and that's a minor thing compared to where the program is at the moment. But to your point, if you were at the game yesterday, or if you were watching what you could see of the stands from the TV broadcast yesterday, there was a sea of blue there. There was not a lot of black and gold in the stands. Credit to the students who came out and they continue to do their part. It's funny to think that we're one season removed from Twitter fighting about the students leaving at halftime during these games, and now they're the ones who were showing up, consistently to these games. But it was a sea of blue. I know a lot of people that personally have season tickets that either sold them or opted to not go. And this was homecoming we're talking about. This wasn't just, Sam Houston or New Hampshire. This was homecoming against a top 25 team.
I'll hold my hand up. I'm accountable. I had season tickets. I did not go to the game, Brian. I tried to sell them. I couldn't.
Yeah.
Like no one bought my tickets. They were for sale. I knew I couldn't go. I had some family stuff this weekend. And to be fair, like I was talking to another buddy about this. Like, to be fair, could I have figured it out? Sure. Right. Could I have gone? Yeah, absolutely. I think, yeah, it comes to sacrifice, right? I mean, it was your son's birthday. So, right, you probably could have figured out a way, but it wouldn't have been perfect. But my buddy basically said, like, I don't want to risk the family capital, not capital from a money standpoint, the family capital of like, hey guys, I really got to go to this game. Now, if UCF 6-1, I'm sure Adam and Brian and Dolly and JP and Mike are at the top of the cabana yelling and screaming and throwing stuff at each other, right? 3-4 UCF with other stuff going on. I think that's the thing that Terry has to guard against, is guys like us who are probably going to most likely go to games going, I don't really know, but hands up, hands raised. I did not go. I could have, and I had my tickets for sale. And to your point, a sad state. I couldn't move them.
I couldn't go because of my son's birthday, but I was not upset that I could not be there. And much like you, I mean, I had tickets that, I ended up giving away, and I'm not sure that all of them even got used, even though I gave them all away. So to your point, Terry is in a very tough position here. We're going to see what he's made of as far as make or break athletic director, because he has definitely got an uphill climb ahead of him here, not just for the football program, but sports. The sports teams in general have not been doing well. I don't know if that's on the coaching hires or just because we're still, adjusting to the Big 12 change, but he is going to have a tough road ahead of him here. And I'm really curious to see what's going to happen once football wraps up, when we move into basketball season, what the future of this program looks like with Terry Mohajir as our athletic director leading the charge.
Yeah, it's going to be super, super interesting, Brian. But let's grab a one final break. We'll come back and we will rant it out for you. So don't move, Sons Today. We'll be back after this. The Sons of UCF is brought to you by Florida Football Prep. Are you ready to take your game to the next level? Then Florida Football Prep has you covered. They provide elite training and top-tier gear for athletes from Pop Warner to professionals. If you're a rising star just starting out, it doesn't matter. You can still check out their Jake Medlock Passing Academy, led by record-setting quarterback Jake Medlock. They don't stop there, though. They've also teamed up with former UCF greats like Marlon Williams and DJ Mack to offer more cutting-edge training that'll put you ahead of the competition. And hey, you need some gear? They have you covered there, too. They have custom team apparel, and they also specialize in expertly conditioned leather footballs. They offer everything you need to perform at your best. Their unique football conditioning process enhances grip, throw, and catchability, giving you an edge when it matters the most. Join the ranks of elite athletes that trust Florida Football Prep for the tools, training, and confidence to succeed. Visit floridafootballprep.com and gain your edge today. All right, we're back, Sons Today. Adam and Brian with you, and our closing rant. Something that's on our mind that we just need to get off our chest. There's a lot going on, Brian. A lot to choose from here. You could probably spin the wheel of options here, but I'll let you kick off. What's your rant? What's your closing argument here for Night Nation?
Okay, here's my rant, and this is maybe going to be unpopular, maybe not. It kind of depends on your perspective of where we're at this season. But given the choice, what we've seen so far, I would like to see us win the space game and then not go to a bowl game. I think that we're at this point in the season where the season is over. A lot of fans are really upset, and going to a bowl game, first of all, in order to get to a bowl game, we would have to win 3 out of our next 4 games, which we have seen. I guess we saw it last year. It's possible. Yep. We could do it, but I haven't seen anything so far this season that tells me that that's possible. Yes, Arizona hasn't looked good. Utah is not looking good. We've got to go on the road to Arizona State still. So not an easy road to get to a bowl game, but I would be satisfied with us not making a bowl game. Even if we were to somehow get to the point where we are bowl eligible, we're 6-6, probably in a best case scenario, we're going to wind up in a situation where we're playing in another Boca Bowl or Gasparilla Bowl. And do we really want to get blown out like we did the last time we played in the Boca Bowl, or, wind up in a lower level bowl where we're facing some G5 team that's got something to prove, that sort of thing. It's a lose-lose scenario for everyone involved, except maybe, I guess, the players you have to think about, right? They get a trip out of it. They get something. That's the only upside to us going to a bowl. If we do make it to a bowl, how many of the Kobe Hudsons are going to opt to play in that sort of bowl game? It's just, I think the season is over at this point. I'd rather us salvage what we have and then, just hang it up at the end of the season. Let fans enjoy a bowl season without having to be stressed that UCF is going to play. I would certainly enjoy my postseason a little bit better, knowing that we didn't have to worry about another game where we're potentially going to have an embarrassing performance on the field. And then having to listen to Gus, we didn't get it done. That falls on the coaches. We got to be better and we got to do these things. And enough is enough at this point.
I got to admit, I did not come into this rant really having an opinion one way or the other on bowls. So as you're talking, I'm thinking this through, right? And I don't necessarily know if I disagree with you. Like in some cases, because here's the thing, right? Again, we just talked about Gus ad nauseum. I'm not going to get back into that. But if we go to a bowl game, right, then we do the thing, oh, Gus took you to 2 bowl games. Should we get credit for a bowl game in a season like this when it's been this bad? I guess that's one thing. 2, to your point, it is a relatively meaningless game in the sense of, are players really up for it? Are the stars, air quotes, going to be able to play? What's going to happen there? 3, it's probably going to be a ho-hum matchup, and again, it's a Gasparilla Bowl. I wouldn't be opposed to UCF basically saying, okay, this is the time to shut it down and kind of rebuild for the future. And does a bowl game really get you that? So under Gus, we beat Florida in the Gasparilla Bowl. We got annihilated by Duke in the Military Bowl. Then we got annihilated by Georgia Tech in the Gasparilla Bowl. So it isn't like we're exactly winning or killing these bowls. So
he does not have a great record in bowl
fair.
games.
No, that's absolutely fair. I've always operated under the premise that I'll take one more UCF football game if I can get it in my life because there's so few options a year.
Absolutely.
But I'm not mad at your idea. If they go to a bowl, I'll watch, I'll support, but I'm not going to throw a complete fit if UCF is not a bowl eligible team at this point. I kind of maybe think that's going that way. And I don't know to your point, I don't know the benefit of going to a bowl this year, other than to say we went to a bowl for, all 3 of Gus Malzahn's, outside of just the optics. Cause I don't even know if kids really care about, this year the bowl's in Tampa, right? And they went to some cool, destination. They got on a bus and drove down to the cow town. I don't know that's a big trip. So I think I'm inclined to maybe believe to buy into your theory here.
Brian from 10, 15 years ago is absolutely livid at himself for saying that, right? Because I love the inner
Brian's fighting.
I would have killed for us to make a bowl game in any given season, whether it was a 4-8, type of down season like we talked about earlier, or even, going to the Peach Bowl and the Fiesta Bowl. I want one more game, right? Even if it's a bowl game, even if it's a lower level tier bowl game, I want one more. I'm just burnt out at this point in this season. We've been doing this. This is, the second. It feels like the 2024 season has become an extension of the 2023 season, and they've just become one long 12-game season right after the other, right? Because we're in this 5-game losing streak for the second time in a row. I'm just burnt out at this point. I don't know that it's worth making a bowl game. I don't know what kind of team we're going to be able to field. The veteran guys are going to probably opt out. And I would hate to get beaten by another Arkansas State like we did in the Cure Bowl right back in 2016. It wasn't fun. I was there. Nobody had a good time other than, we were.
Terry Mahacha did. I think he was the AD at Arkansas State.
Yeah, I think you're right. So I don't see the benefit of it, other than the players getting, one more game and they're, they get some goodies from the bowl committees and, all that fun stuff. So that is the one upside to us making a bowl.
Is the Brian of 10 years ago wearing gold?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. Just making sure 10 years ago, Brian's over there looking at the Spider-Man meme. You're pointing at the current version of Brian.
I was upset I couldn't be at this game because this was the fans' choice. Wear whatever you wanted to wear at the game.
Well, so I don't want to bring this up, but the picture you posted of you and your son on his birthday, again, very happy birthday to Max. You had a custom 26 Peterson jersey on. That looked new, Brian. Did you fall for one of those Temu, UCF jerseys? Not Timo.
It wasn't UCF. Temu. It wasn't. So that's Good Threads.
Okay.
So no, it's not a Nike jersey. Obviously, we don't sell Nike gold jerseys. But this was Gold Threads. I think I bought it on the UCF Fanatics website, and it's actually number 26 is Christian Peterson. So it was the option for me to buy a jersey with the name Peterson on the back. So I couldn't turn it down. And Christian Peterson has been playing extremely well So he's become kind of a fan favorite of mine just because he's got an awesome last name.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was not a Nike jersey. It's a Good Threads jersey. It was sold on the UCF Fanatics website.
Okay.
And I guess it was to the benefit of our good friend Christian Peterson, who's just got a fantastic last name, and it was an opportunity for me to get one with my name on it.
No, I appreciate that. I wish Christian the best, as I'm sure he'll be at Boston College next year. But my closing rant is this, Brian. There's a lot going on in the world today, right? Everywhere around us, there's division. People aren't aligned on many different factors of society, right? I'm not going to get into all that, but every day around us, there's division. There's people not agreeing on stuff. There's disagreements. And it can make it for a really tough day sometimes when you're around people and there's just a lot of divisiveness, right? The one thing that's always brought us together is the fact that we all love this silly college called UCF for some reason. Either we went there, our parents went there, it's nearby where we grew, whatever your case is, right? And in our case, Brian, obviously we're alums. And so that's, it's kind of the thing we're born into. But UCF's the thing that you go back to and say, this is the one spot I'm going to go and sort of get away from that and combine, my love of UCF with some of my friends and my closest people in the world. We were talking in that group chat I mentioned earlier about obviously the season sucks, but the one thing that was in that group chat was somebody said like, hey, are we also going to the space game? Camaraderie is important. We need that camaraderie, right? And we all were like, yeah, we'll be there. Yeah, we got to do it. Like all of us, none of us want to go because we suck, but we all want to go because we want to hang out and be near the people that we care about and be near a thing we care about, UCF. And the bad thing that's happened, unfortunately, this year, and it's happened a lot on for the last couple of seasons. You think about the Gus tenure, right? First, it was it Gus or Lebby? Should we have hired Jeff Lebby instead of Gus? Right, that divided the fan base. And it was Mikey and JRP. Then it was JRP and Tommy. Right, then it's what uniform are we wearing? Like every week, there seems to be some sort of a new conflict with UCF. And of late, that conflict has elevated a ton because things aren't good, Brian. And when things aren't good, people often turn on each other. They get feisty, they get cranky, they get angry. And again, I completely get it. But my rant this week is, don't tell another fan how to fan. If the way someone's getting through this hard time about UCF is being super angry about it and wanting to fire Gus, fine. Some fan wants to be positive, Brian. I know we talk and again, the group chat, there's a nice man who wrote a really, really sweet letter about like, let's all stay positive here. And he got ripped to shreds, right? If that's how you want to fan, fine. If you want to go and boo, go ahead. If you want to cheer and be positive, that's okay too. If you want to sell your tickets because you just don't have the stomach to go to a game, then go ahead. Like, let's just let fans be how they're going to be. None of this is the fault of any of us, right? None of us did any of this to anybody else. So we're all going to deal with this a little differently. Some people are going to sell their tickets and not go to games. Some people are going to root every game, whatever. Let's not tell fans how to fan. Let's not turn on each other right now. The only thing we've got is the fact that we're all going to still be here whenever this ride comes to an end, whatever that happens to be. Not to bring this to a downer, Brian, but we saw a really tragic, unfortunate situation this week with South Florida losing their head basketball coach at the age of 43. Life is short. Life is fragile. We all bond over the thing that is UCF. And yeah, it's not great. And it's okay if you don't have the same alignment or agreement with your buddy next to you or a fellow fan. But at the end of the day, we are still all fellow fans. So let's take it easy on each other. Let's have a little grace. Somebody wants to root and cheer, let's let them. If they want to boo and yell, let that person do it too. We're all UCF family. We don't need to turn on each other. Let's put that negative energy towards whatever opponent we're playing that week, or just ensuring that you're there for your fellow fan who's going through it just like you are, but maybe going through it differently. So no more night on night crime. Let's at least can we all just get along, Brian? That's my rant. Can't we get along?
Let's all try and do our best to stay positive during this this difficult time for the UCF football program. But no, I think you're absolutely right. There's been a lot of infighting on social media. I tend to see it as folks being frustrated with the state of the program and where we're at. Obviously nobody wants to be on a 5-game losing skid. Whether you're pro Gus or you'd rather get off the Gus bus, we all have the same goal in mind for UCF, right? And that is to win football games. So I guess that's, to your point, let's try and keep that in perspective, that we all want the best for UCF. And if you need to, get something off your chest, if you're frustrated, let's keep it classy, as they say.
Yes.
you know,
I think that's the biggest point. Not to cut you off. I think the two biggest rules are never DM players or players' families. Don't tag players' families or players in this. Like I see a lot, and I go, they're paid, they're multi-million-dollar. I see a lot of like, at Coach Malzahn, at Terry Hodger, fire yourselves. Right? I see a lot of that. They're paid professionals. Fine, like it is what it is, right? But I guess you could argue the players are paid professionals. But like, let's keep families out of this. Let's keep families out of this. Let's keep DM threats out of it. To your point, if you're frustrated and that's how you express how you feel right now, those are your emotions, and you're frustrated. Cool, go be frustrated, right? Be frustrated with the program. But just because Brian, let's just say in this case, isn't as frustrated as you are, doesn't make Brian not a real fan. It doesn't mean he doesn't care. It doesn't mean he's soft. It doesn't mean he doesn't know ball. He's just processing it differently.
For the record, I am frustrated as everybody else is. Please do not at me.
Same, by the way. But that doesn't mean that you need to go attack Brian, because he doesn't share his disdain in the same way that you do. Know that Brian and all the Brians out there and all the Brianettes, I don't know if I can do that, are probably feeling the same thing you're feeling. They're just going to express it differently.
And I think that's what it is, right? Everyone is going to express themselves a little bit differently. Just, keep in mind, to your point, Adam, the players are still UCF students, just like we were when we went to school there, right? Obviously they're the ones that are putting on the pads and, having to execute these plays on the field. But at the end of the day, these are still kids, they're players, and they are students just like we were. So if you feel the need to at Terry or at Gus, if that's something that you really feel is going to be useful and effective, have at it. But let's try and not have any night crime out there, and especially keep the players out of this. They certainly don't want to be losing, just like we don't want to watch the team lose. And let's stay positive. I'll be at the Space Game next week, whether that's winds up being a 6-game losing skid for UCF or not. Fingers crossed it doesn't. Let's keep that Space Game streak alive. But I'll be there. I'll probably be wearing a Canaveral blue jersey, much to Trace's chagrin. He hates the Canaveral blue, but it's the Space Game. Let's get excited for that. Let's get out there and see the Space Game fun, and try and keep the night-on-night crime to a minimum.
I will be right there next to you, my friend, and probably some sort of a Suns space gear outfit as it were. And fun fact, I've never been to a Space Game. This will be my first ever Space Game.
Never been to
no,
a
for
Space
somehow
Game?
I've always missed a Space Game. I don't know why that is, but this will be my first ever Space Game. So we're excited about getting out there and cheering on our Knights. And to your point, hopefully it comes out with a W. But
I balance you out because I've been to every Space Game.
Is that right? Okay,
that is right.
You went to Oklahoma State last year in the rain?
Oh yeah. I was at that.
Wow. See, that's why you can't yell at Brian, because he is absolutely a real fan.
I remember specifically because I was wearing my it was the all Canaveral blue jersey, and I ran into Trace at the stadium, and his first words to me were, "You look like a highlighter."
Well, that sounds about right. Trey, listen, when I want fashion advice, I run right to Trace Trelko for that information. But
that was a fun game, though. I mean,
it was a good one. That's what we need. We need to get back in. We need a 45-3 win this year against Arizona, like we had last year against Oklahoma State. I could do without the pouring rain. Y'all can keep that.
It really came down.
Eric Burris, do what you got to do to keep that weather away from me. But what I will take is the W, and hopefully at least some good times, some good vibes with our friends, some good vibes being in the stadium again and having a good time. Hopefully that works out. Second to last home game of the year, I think, right?
Yes, we have that, and we have the Utah
Friday,
game,
right?
Which is Black Friday. Yeah.
So only 2 more of these left to hang out with your friends, have a good time, and enjoy UCF football. At least enjoy each other's company. The product in the field may not be exactly what we want this year, and feel free to boo the hell out of it if you need to. But at least you have a good friend with you, and maybe that friend will also wear Canaveral blue and look like.
If we're losing the Space Game, I will be booing with you.
Okay. Yes. No. Yeah. I will start the cheers. The cheer or the jeers, I guess, as it were.
Cheers. Yes, the cheers.
But anyway, Brian, thanks for hopping in. Thanks for another great episode. Thanks for everybody out there listening. Make sure you subscribe anywhere you do subscriptions of stuff, particularly on audio, and our YouTube channel as well. Big thanks to our sponsors, Werner, Hoffman, Greig Garcia, the Cure Bowl, Alumni Hall, Florida Football Prep, and Charlie Hustle that help make all this stuff happen. This is again a new venture here, Sons Today. We'll have another show out here later on this week. And don't forget to follow along. We've got Around the Kingdom. We've got Sons.com. We've got maybe up all night this week. You never really know what's going to happen with those two, and Suns Live as well. So from all of us here at the Suns, we appreciate your support. For Brian, I am Adam. We are out of here. Go Knights.
Charge on.